This is my current iteration of my motion-activated Bluetooth beacon. And it works well. It runs off of a little coin cell battery. You turn it on, and when the motion sensor detects motion, it turns on the Bluetooth beacon, and the Bluetooth beacon will emit whatever you tell it to emit for a few seconds and then turn off again. So you can program it through this serial header here from your computer to emit a beacon that your droid will react to. And I think that's one of the features, the most underutilized features of droids from Galaxy's Edge is around the park. There are all these Bluetooth beacons that your droid's going to react to as you're walking around the parks. But when you come home, you no longer have that functionality. So something like this to utilize that functionality to give you a little bit more, give you more of an experience with your droid. Something like this is really useful. So I'm kind of focused on Bluetooth beacons at the moment. This one, though, I don't think is ready. These Bluetooth beacons come pre-programmed. The firmware on it is pretty basic. It just listens for the serial connection, and when you send commands to it via that serial connection, it'll store whatever beacon data you tell it to broadcast, and then it broadcasts that data, and that's it. That's all it does. There's not a lot there. I think I need to rewrite that firmware. I think I need to make my own. And what I would do is I would pre-program all the relevant beacons into it, and then give you a button to push. And every time you push the button, it would change to a new beacon. Or maybe instead of that, maybe an option to randomize the beacon, so you just turn it on and it picks a beacon at random. I still need to figure it all out. The point is, I don't think this is quite ready, because I want something that anybody can use to interact with their droid, which sort of brings me on to this. This is a Microbit. It was designed by the BBC to teach people how to program, to teach computer programming. It's got a processor on it, an accelerometer, a compass. It has Bluetooth capabilities, very important for us. You can power it with a USB power pack or an external battery pack. And on the front, you get a couple of buttons and this little 5x5. I don't know if you want to call it a display, but I'll call it a display. It's a display of your Microbit. And they're not expensive, but they're not inexpensive. The whole kit here this board would cost you about $15. To get a whole bundle that includes the external battery pack, a USB cable, a socket you can plug it into, so you'll have access to more pins, so you can plug in external sensors to it and or send signals out to it to some external item or device. A whole bundle will run you about $20. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on adafruit.com, or you can just go to microbit.org and they will tell you where you can buy it from within your country. And because this was made to help people to learn how to program, there is a very simple programming interface that anybody can use. It's based on MakeCode from Microsoft, and what it is it's a website that you go to. You don't have to register. There's no signing up or anything, and you get what are called blocks. They look like puzzle pieces, and as you fit different puzzle pieces together, each puzzle piece representing a command of some sort, you rearrange the puzzle pieces however you want. And then you hit the save button, and it generates a hex file that you have to save to your Microbit. And it will reprogram itself with that new program. And to save it to the Microbit, it's real simple. You just plug this into your computer through the USB cable, and it appears to your computer like a flash drive. You save the hex file to that flash drive in quotation marks, and the Microbit will detect the presence of this file and automatically reprogram itself. It's really easy to start programming the Microbit. The only problem is this MakeCode interface. It only has support for a couple of predefined beacon formats, like iBeacon or AltBeacon or something like that. Those beacon formats don't work. The beacons used in Galaxy's Edge have a different format that's not a standard anywhere. So programming this to generate beacons that your droid can react to isn't easy. It's impossible or nearly impossible through that MakeCode interface, unless someone were to write an extension. An extension is sort of like a library, a programming library. In this MakeCode interface, you can import external libraries, or again, extensions they call them, and you get added functionality, whatever the extension provides. So I wrote an extension for the Microbit for that MakeCode environment that gives you the ability to create beacons that your droids will react to. And with just a Microbit and the URL to that extension, you can start to make your droid. You can start writing programs to make your droid react to Bluetooth beacons in seconds. So that, I think, is what I'm going to show you now. This is the MakeCode development environment for the Microbit. You can get to it by going to makecode.microbit.org. There's no registering or signing up for anything. You just go right into creating programs for your Microbit. So to start, we'll click on New Project. On the left-hand side, we're going to see a virtual Microbit. As you change your program on the right-hand side here, this virtual Microbit gets updated with the new code. And this is a way you can test your program before you save it to your Microbit. The middle here has a group of sections, or it's a list of different sections or groups of blocks that you can use in your program. So for example, if I click on Basic here, I get this list of blocks. Show LEDs. I'll grab that, stick this into, I can drag it out to the canvas here, whatever you want to call it. It's got this little crosshatch pattern right now because it's not attached to anything, so it's not going to be executed or used for anything. If I drag it into the On Start section, now we can start interacting with it. For example, I can draw this little box here, and you can see the virtual Microbit on the left has updated itself. Now we see it running this code, which is to draw this picture of a box with its LEDs. And that is what the Show LEDs block does. And I could save this. I'll call it Demo. I'm going to save it to my Microbit. Now we wait a moment here. And when it's done reprogramming itself, we should see a block icon appear on that display. There you go. That is how easy it is to program a Microbit. Now we want to do something a little more interesting, specifically Bluetoothy stuff. So if you click on this gear icon in the top right, there's this extensions link. You can click on that or come over here to Advanced in the middle, scroll down to where it says Extensions and click on it there. Either way gets you to the same place. And this is a list of extensions that you can click on to add to your project. Or if you know the URL of an extension project on GitHub, say, you could type in the URL here and it'll import it into your program for you automatically. So to start, we'll take on Bluetooth. It's going to warn you here that radio and Bluetooth extensions are incompatible. That's okay. Just click the checkbox and keep on moving along. Now if I click on this Bluetooth section here, I have a bunch of blocks. They look like they might do stuff, but I don't know. Down here at the bottom there, these two blocks here that talk about creating something that will advertise. These are beacons. Advertising is another word for beacon. You can see if I leave the mouse over there for over that block for a moment. You get this pop-up help text here. That's going to create an Eddystone beacon if I use this block here. And the same with the advertising a URL. They're going to create Eddystone format beacons, which the droids don't understand. We need to add that functionality, and we can do that by going back into extensions. And this time, instead of clicking on an extension here, type in the address for the extension that I created, which is github.com/ruthsarian/pxt SWGE Beacon. And there'll be a link down below. So if you didn't catch that, that is okay. So after I put that URL in, it has detected that there's an extension at that URL. All I got to do is click on it, and it loads it into my workspace. Now if I click on that Bluetooth section, I get a couple of new blocks. SWGE Location Beacon and Droid Beacon. The Location Beacon will create a beacon similar to beacons you find throughout the park that your droid will react to that tend to be associated with a specific location. So, for example, if we bring this in here and we look at the drop-down list, we can see that there's a beacon in the marketplace area. There's typically a different beacon behind Droid Depot, the Resistance base. There's another one inside Droid Depot, Doc Ondars, the First Order base. All these beacons that seem to be limited to just these individual sections of the park. So as you walk through the different sections, your droids will see different beacons and react accordingly. The Droid Beacon, it simulates a beacon that a droid creates based off of whatever personality chip is currently plugged in. So blue, gray, red, orange, whatever personality chip you have, your droid will emit a beacon identifying itself as having that personality chip. If you don't have a personality chip installed, it still creates a beacon, but the beacon is now based off of what type of droid. So there's an R unit or a BB unit droid beacon. Once you add a personality chip, then you lose the ability to tell if it's an R unit or a BB unit in the beacon. I find I get the best action with the Location Beacon. So I'm going to put that into the on start. So as soon as this thing starts up, it's going to start emitting a marketplace beacon. And I want to add an icon. So after it creates this beacon, it displays something on those LEDs. So I know that the microbit is up and running and doing something. So I'm going to use this heart icon. I can, select a bunch of these different icons or use that show LEDs block I used earlier to create my own pattern. So I'm going to save that to my microbit. And I have a droid on in the background that's been waiting to hear a beacon. So in theory, when a heart shows up on the screen here in a second, the droid should react, but it might take a couple of seconds. I could also be talking out of my... There we go. So that's the droid reacting to the beacon that we just created with the microbit, with this programming interface, with that extension that I've created. So now the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. So at this point, you can go forth and make your own. The rest of this video is me putting together a program that does a few different things, just so you can get a better idea of what the environment is like and how you can go and make your own programs for this. So if you're sticking around, we're going to essentially start over from scratch here. I'm going to save this blank program to my microbit, essentially turning it off for now. So it's not triggering the droid that's going on in the background there. All right. I want to have something happen when I press the A button. I want something to happen when I press the B button. And maybe I want something, because there's an accelerometer, there's an ability to make it do something when you shake it. So I'm going to do something there too. I don't know what yet. Okay, next up. In the Bluetooth section, there is this subsection called More where the advanced blocks exist, and there are going to be a few extra advanced blocks that I've added. The location and droid beacons, but instead of a drop-down list, they take a number. So you can create a variable and change that variable and pass the value of that variable to this location beacon block. So it will change using a number that you can adjust programmatically. So I'll show you what I mean here. I'm going to put this in the, whenever I press the A button here, I'm going to need a beacon variable. Create a new variable, call it beacon. And I'm going to drag this over here. So when I press the A button, it's going to set the location beacon to whatever value is in that beacon variable. Well, so what's going to be in that variable? I'm going to set it to a random number. Under this math section here, pick random. Drag that in here. A random value between 1 and 7, because there are 7 beacons. So it's going to pick a number between 1 and 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. And then it'll create a beacon based off of that every time I press the A button. Now I want a little visual feedback too. I want to know what, for my own curiosity, what beacon is currently being created. So I'm going to go into this basics section, and there's a show string block. I'm going to bring that in. Instead of passing it hello, I'm going to pass it the variable beacon. Oh, get in there. So it's going to pick a random number, assign it to the variable called beacon. It's then going to create a location beacon based off of that value. And then it's going to show me the number representing the area that it's created, the beacon that it's created. So every time I press the A button, it's going to keep picking a random beacon. Now, I like this, and I want to use it for something else later, so I'm actually going to turn that into a function. I'm going to call it random beacon. I'm just going to drag that down into random beacon, and now when I press the A button, I'm going to pass it, I'm going to tell it to call the function random beacon. So it's going to do the same thing as before, but now I have put all of that code to pick a random number and assign it to a beacon, or create a beacon based off of it, and display the number of the beacon currently in use, all in this function. So now I can call this function from other places if I want to later on. But now for the B button, what do I want to do for the B button? Instead of picking a beacon by random, I'm going to do it sequentially, because let's say you're testing something, you want to see what happens to beacon 3. Well, you could hit the random button a bunch of times until beacon 3 pops up, and it's random, so it might be a little while. Or we could just add this sequential functionality, so you keep pressing the button until you get to 3. You know how many buttons you're going to have to, or how many times you have to press that button before you get there. So I want to do what? The first thing I want to do is beacon right now, if I were to press the B button, would have no value. I need to give it something ahead of time. So I'm going to give it the value of 1. So every time, and I'm doing this assignment in the on start section. So every time you turn the microbit on, the value assigned to the variable beacon will be 1. And now I'm going to do a, how do I want to do this? I need to do, I'm going to duplicate this. Or I make that another function. Create beacon, I'll call it. And it's going to be whatever value is in beacon, create the beacon and show the number on the display. And I can call create beacon from random beacon. And I can also call create beacon over here when I press the B button. And actually, I don't want to use set. I want to go into variables, change beacon by 1. So when the first time I press that B button, it's just going to create a beacon based off of whatever value is in beacon right now. But you know what? Maybe I don't want to do that. I'll start with 0, so that way the first time I create a beacon, first time I press the B button, I'm incrementing beacon by 1. Yes, because if you have pressed the random button first, hit the A button first a couple of times, and then you hit B, it won't change it. If I reversed it, it's on a random beacon 4, say, and then I press the B button, it's going to just recreate that beacon. It's not going to do anything. I need to change the beacon before I call create beacon on the B button. That's why I'm doing this. And so I'm initializing the value of beacon to 0, so when I increment it by 1 here, it's going to be up to the number 2. Or I could do something else, but let's get there. If beacon logic, I need a comparison. If beacon is greater than 7, because I'm only incrementing it here, I'm not subtracting from it, so it should never be, negative 10 here. There's no way for it to become negative 10. I'm setting it at 0 when I turn it on, and I'm incrementing it by 1 here. I'm picking a random number between 1 and 7 here, but maybe I throw in a little extra logic here to detect it in either case, like this. If beacon is greater than 7, or if beacon is less than 1, set beacon to 1. Now, is that going to work without initializing beacon? I think I want to initialize it to the value 0 when I turn this thing on. I don't know what would happen otherwise. Okay, so it's going to change. It's going to increment beacon by 1, so it'll become the number 1. And if beacon is greater than 7 or less than 1, it'll change it back to 1, which is not happening here. I mean, which it won't be when I first turn it on. It'll skip past this instruction because it is the number 1, which is not greater than 7 and not less than 1. And it'll call create beacon. The beacon gets created, and then the next time I press this number, the whole thing happens again. It increments the number by 1, checks if it's a good beacon number, and if not, sets it to 1, and then calls create beacon. So that's going to cover pressing the A button and getting a random beacon, or pressing the B button and going through the beacons sequentially. What else? How about an Easter egg, just a hidden piece of functionality that is there just for fun, which we'll throw into the shake. On shake, we'll show you what do we want to do there? On shake, it'll show the message Yoda was here. And then what? And then I could do what's going to happen is it's going to display the string, and after it's done displaying the string, the screen, the display is going to be blank until you press a button to update it again by creating a new beacon, Or I could just throw call create beacon in there. And all that's going to do is it's going to recreate a beacon that's already active. Unless you were to shake this thing before you pressed any of these buttons, in which case, it'll create a 0 beacon, which is invalid. So I think we'll do one more function. I don't want this to get more complicated. I mean, it's already complicated enough with 3 functions now. I'm going to call this function display. Alright, and the way this is going to work is logic if and I want a comparison. If beacon, actually, you know what, I can just make a copy of this. If beacon is greater than 7 or less than 1, meaning it's an invalid beacon, then I will display something else. I'll show the current string. And I'll use a diamond shape there, sure. And then after I create a beacon, I want to do a call to display to update the display. And on shake, Yoda was here, and then after Yoda was here, call display. So now if you shake this first, it'll display that diamond shape thing. And you know what else? We'll make a call display thing to on start. So that diamond shape will sort of be its I'm waiting to do something. I think that's good. We can go over to the simulator real quick. We can see, we can shake it. And we see it says Yoda was here. And it goes back to displaying a diamond because I haven't pressed a button. I press a random button. The random button, you can see it's going through random numbers. If I press the B button, it's going sequentially. 7, and it should go back to 1. Good. And if we shake it, and after it says Yoda was here, it should go back to displaying the number, what was it, 4? Yep. So in theory, this works. Now to save it to the microbit and see if it really works. The file name that you save the hex file as doesn't matter. You can call it whatever you want. Okay, so it is reprogramming itself, and when it's done, we see a diamond shape. Excellent. And if I shake it, it says Yoda was here. And that's my little Easter egg. And now if I press the random button, put it on 7 now, which is first order. You might have noticed when I was pressing that random button, it started with 1 and then it went to 6 and so on and so forth. If I power this thing off and on again, it's going to go through the same random, in quotation marks, order. It's the random number generator of the microbit is not great. Is there an extension? I haven't even looked for this. Random. Nope. Oh well. Maybe that's the next thing I need to do. So it's not quite random, but it's random-ish. But if you notice the same numbers keep coming up every time you turn the microbit on, that's why. It's not really random. And so now this thing's going to keep repeating or responding to the beacon. So what else could you do with this? I mean, when a droid sees a beacon, that beacon corresponds to a specific group of audio clips that it will play. It'll pick one at random and play from that group. The problem is, if your beacon is set to, say, 7, as it is right now for me, you're going to hear the same 4 or 5 audio clips over and over and over again. So what if we added something that would, when it does random beacons, it does them automatically, like it automatically keeps changing every X number of seconds. So hello, it's future me. I'm here editing the video, and I've realized that I've just resized the video, or the window outside of the capture area. So everything I'm about to do, you can't see, and that's useless. So we're going to skip all of that, and I'll do a quick review of the changes I added. What I did is I created this do random variable. I'm going to treat it as a flag. And if you press the A and B buttons together, it's going to toggle that value between 1 and 0, or on and off. And what this flag is going to do is when you press A and B together, the display will say R on or R off, depending if the random function is being turned on or off. And when it's on, in this forever loop here, so in the forever block, this stuff is just being repeated over and over and over again forever. What it's going to do is it's going to check the do random variable, and if it's set to 1, it's going to create a random beacon, and then it's going to pause for 1,000 milliseconds or 1 second, and it's going to repeat that pause of 1 second 120 times. So essentially it's going to wait for 2 minutes, and then it's going to create another random beacon. So the idea is you hit the A and B buttons together, and your microbit's every 2 minutes going to create a new random beacon. So the idea is you have 7 different beacons. Each beacon can produce different audio clips, or the droid will play audio clips from different audio groups for each of those beacons. By doing this random beacon thing here, you're going to be able to hear more audio from your droid than just the 4 or 5 clips that are going to be in that one audio group for that one beacon you have going. So that is what I've added. I'm also, if you press the A or B buttons after you turn do random on, it's going to set it back to 0 to disable it, just because if you're hitting the B button or the A button to create go to the next beacon sequentially, it makes no sense to keep doing that random function until, or maybe it does. It's your call. You can come in here and delete this stuff later if you want. Here, I will click on the share button, and I'm going to call it this Beacon Demo 2. When I click on publish, we have a link here. This link, if you copy that down and put it into your web browser, you will be able to look at this code, edit it, make changes, and save it to your microbit. I will include a link to this down below, and now that I've highlighted it, it won't unhighlight it. That's great. So, yep, down in the description below, there will be a link to this so you can play with the code yourself. And that's it. If you use the, and I think I've already mentioned this or put a card earlier in the video about this, if you go to use this extension, you might see 1 or 2 new blocks that weren't there when I was initially recording this video. I'm constantly looking at the code, trying to add new functionality. So you might see new things pop up from in the future if you use this later than when I'm recording it, which of course you will. That's okay. That's just, you can go ahead and try and guess what the extra blocks do, and play around with them and experiment, because really that's the best way to learn all of this stuff, is just to experiment. That's why I like this interface so much, is it's really easy to experiment and screw around with the code, make changes to it, and see what it does. Okay, so that's it. Video over. It's already gone far too long. If you do anything with this Microbit extension, I would love to hear about it. Please let me know. Leave a comment. Say, here's what I did. You can even link to your own code. I'd be curious to see what everybody comes up with. So, that's it. Have fun.